Okay, so figured I'd show you guys how to flash one of these D1 minis. It's just another variant of your usual ESP8266. These are very nice, very useful little project boards. The new ones actually come out with USB-C, which is nice because basically everything's USB-C now. You got TX, RX, data pins, whatever you want for your projects. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that and then get to the flashing part. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the driver issue with these boards. They're not gonna work by default. I see a lot of people buy these and they leave bad reviews simply because they don't know how to install the driver or get them to be detected by Windows. So they say things like, oh, it's a clone and it's trash and it doesn't work, etc. Yeah, they're not defective. I have probably had about 20 of these and not a single one was bad. It's a driver issue, and it's basically user error on how to use them. Now, you could buy one of these probably for around like $18 directly from, you know, an official Arduino site, but the clones are sometimes actually better than the originals because they implement changes or updates to them versus the standard ones. Anyway, on SparkFun's website, they provide this exe installer here, and this is basically the installer for the driver. So we're going to go ahead and download this. I'm going to open the driver location. Now, this is where you want to plug it in. But before we do that, go to the bottom left of your screen and right click, then open up Device Manager. We're going to put these two things right next to each other. So what we're going to look for is this option that says ports, which is not there yet because nothing's connected. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my D1 Mini. So now we have this option called ports. And in my case, it detected it. This is only because I previously had a version of this driver on here. But you basically might just have a yellow triangle next to this, which basically tells you that there's not a driver or it's an incorrect driver. So we can double click on the CH341 SER installer. We can click yes. We can click install. Driver success. Now remember, this is only going to work if it's plugged in. You can't install this using this installer if it's not plugged into your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug it now for my system. And I'm going to restart my computer so the registry updates correctly. Okay, so now that we've restarted, let's go ahead and confirm we have it detected. So I'm going to pull up Device Manager again, plug in my D1 Mini. We can see under ports here that it is detected. So I'm going to close this. Now what we want to do is, in this case, we're going to put Tasmota on it, but you basically can go to GitHub's page, Tasmota and Tasmotizer. In my case, I'm running Windows, so I'm going to scroll down to get the standalone executable for Windows. I'm going to get the 1.2 EXE here. I'm going to download it. So here, if I open this up, we can see that it detects COM3, which is what it's currently. We can see that it detects COM3, which is the current USB device, our D1 Mini. Here you can select your bin file, or this is built into the Tasmotizer software. You can click release, and this is way easier, but basically you can select what version of Tasmota you want. So the base one is just Tasmota. We have the sensors bin, we have the display bin, and essentially some sensors might not be listed in the base version, and you might not have support for certain OLED displays. So that's why you would want to select one of these. For a slightly more advanced scenario, you might want to combine some sensors from here, some displays from here, and then compile your own firmware, but we're not doing that in this video. So again, I can select this base version, or if you wanted to go to the actual Tasmota releases page, you can see them here. But these are essentially all the same ones that you're just able to see here. So I'm just going to select the base model, and we can click Tasmotize. It's going to download the bin file, and then it's going to install it for us. First, it's going to erase the chip, and then it's going to write to it. After this is done, we can basically get to Tasmota one of two ways. By default, after it's installed, Tasmota will be broadcasting from the D1 Mini, and you can access it with basically your Wi-Fi. So you can pull up your phone or your laptop, and then you'll see a Wi-Fi name, a Wi-Fi SSID that says Tasmota numbers and letters, and then you connect to that, and you can get to the control interface with IP address 192.168.4.1, and then you can configure your Wi-Fi connectivity for your home. So now that this is done, it says power cycle the device. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to unplug it, and then I'm going to plug it back in. So if I pull up Wi-Fi here, you can see Tasmota is listed. So I can click this device and then hit connect. For some reason, when you connect to that, Windows likes to pull up msn.com. But I am connected to it, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the address I mentioned earlier. And it's gonna show available networks next to you. Obviously, ESP8266s are only 2.4 gigahertz capable. So I'm going to type my Wi-Fi password and then hit save. You might not know the IP address that your router gave you, but generally this will actually redirect like it did just now. So from this point on, you can configure things. The first thing I would do personally is go into console and set the time. You can just type in time and see what it thinks the time is. In my case, it's accurate. You can also type time zone, and this is actually wrong. So I'm going to do time zone space -10, and then actually now it's correct. So anyway, that's set. Under configuration, this is where we would essentially configure our pinouts and whatnot. Most of the time, you're going to use this generic 18 config. This is where we can set our TX and RX, et cetera, if we're adding buttons or temperature sensors or whatever it might be. This is where we can select our device name. I would recommend changing this. Like if this was going to be like, I don't know, hydroponics, temperature, humidity, or something of the nature, I would change that here and here, as this is going to help you when you're viewing it in your routers, and it's going to have an actual label. So yeah, that's one way to configure it. Another way to configure it, if we pull up our Tasmotizer again, we can do a send config directly from here. So I can input the SSID and the password, and then you hit save, and it actually pushes that config to your D1 Mini in this case, and then you don't have to do the Wi-Fi setup portion. You can also configure MQTT. You're going to use this if you're adding this device to something like Home Assistant for monitoring purposes. And I can show you guys how to do that later. But for now, you have Tasmota installed. You can access it over the Wi-Fi, and you can kind of configure it however you want from this point on. Anyway, thanks for watching.